Welcome to Cooking with Kayla. I'm Kayla, one of the registered dietitian nutritionists here at San Antonio Regional Hospital. Today we're going to be making walnut crusted egg muffins. They're a delicious and nutritious treat where we're going to get our protein, carbohydrates, and fats, and a few vegetables too, for an easy breakfast or snack. So stick around and we'll get started. So we're gonna get started by making our crust for our egg muffins. So this is kind of like a quiche that we're making. So it's gonna have a crust on the bottom layer, and then we're gonna have our egg mixture that goes on top of it when we bake it in the oven. So to make our crust, we're gonna first start by using a food processor. If you didn't have a food processor, you could totally blend up your oats ahead of time in a blender and cut up your walnuts really, really fine. So we're gonna start with 1 cup of rolled oats. The rolled oats are gonna be the whole grain, which is gonna have extra fiber, which we definitely want. And now we're gonna add in 3/4 of a cup of our walnuts. These are raw walnuts that I'm using, unsalted. And then we're going to add in our flavor factors, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. If you're watching your salt, you could totally leave out the salt, but this is gonna add a little extra flavor. And 1/4 teaspoon is not very much for this entire recipe since we're making 12 muffins. We're also going to add in 1/2 teaspoon of our onion powder. Our onion powder is gonna be adding a lot of extra flavor. If you didn't have onion powder, you could use garlic powder or any other kind of herbs or spices that you like. And then next we're gonna add in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. The olive oil is a nice heart-healthy oil, and what it's gonna do is it's gonna help everything to stick together for our crust. It's also going to help our crust get nice and crispy. So we've got 2 tablespoons of the extra virgin olive oil going in. And now what we're going to do is we're gonna put the lid on and we're gonna give it a good pulse. And what we want is for it to all kind of start to form a little bit of a dough. We want the pieces to be pretty fine. That looks pretty good for now. We're gonna blend it a little more after we add some water. We're gonna add in 2 tablespoons of cold water. And the cold water is gonna help everything to stick together. You can use more or less depending on how your dough goes. But once we add this water in, what's gonna happen is it's gonna start to form kind of like a ball in our food processor. So 2 tablespoons of our water, and this should happen pretty quickly. And we can see that it's kind of crumbly and the dough is starting to stick together. So if I pick some up here, you can see that I can flatten it with my fingers, which is perfect because we're gonna be flattening it into our muffin tin. So I'll be right back with our muffin tin so we can start to make our little crusts. So now that our crust is complete, we're going to be putting it into our muffin pan. So we want to have a 12-spot muffin pan. This is a silicone muffin pan. It works really well for a recipe like this because it's easy to pop out the muffins once they're finished, but you can also just use a regular muffin pan as well if you have one. But I would just recommend using a cooking spray and spraying them really well. I would usually spray in the sink so that you don't get stuff everywhere and get all slippery. Or you could use a little bit of olive oil to go inside of each one of the muffin pans because we want them to come out pretty easily. And you'll see that the ones that I made that I'm gonna show you, I used just a regular muffin pan so I can show you how to get them out later. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna use about a tablespoon of our crust in each one of our muffin cups. And I'm just using my 1 tablespoon here and my clean hands, of course. And so we're just gonna evenly put our crust into all the muffin tins and then we're gonna flatten it out. It's easier and safer if we can just take this blade out of there. Makes it a little simpler for us. So we just do a tablespoon in each one until all of our dough is used up. Then any extra, I'm just going to sprinkle in so that everything is nice and even. Okay, so now what I like to do is I like to just press gently with my fingertips to kind of get it started. It's kind of like playing with Play-Doh. You just smash it in to our muffin pan. And I like to just have the crust at the very bottom of mine. You could make the crust go up the sides if you wanted, but I thought it was easier to get them out if I just flatten the crust at the very bottom of our muffin pan. And so then you'll have the crust at the bottom and then the egg mixture on top. And I actually have an old jar that fits really well into my muffin pan. And so when I'm finished, I just put it on each one. I think this was maybe a jar for jelly, or maybe it had capers in it. I don't remember, but it fits perfectly into each spot of my muffin pan. So now that our crusts are all in our muffin tins, evenly distributed and flattened out, we're gonna bake it at 350 degrees for about 25 minutes. And when it comes out, it's going to look something like this. Each of our crusts are nice and golden brown around the outside. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna make our egg mixture and we're gonna pour it on top of this, and it's gonna make like a layered effect for each of our egg muffins. So now we are going to make our egg filling. So I've already cracked 9, but we need 10 eggs. I like to crack my eggs on a flat surface, such as on a table or on a paper towel. And many times people ask me what's the difference between brown eggs and white eggs. The difference is just the type of chicken who laid the egg. So it doesn't mean one is healthier or less healthy than the other. What's more important is if you're wanting to get an extra boost, look for the omega-3 enriched eggs, which means they had the omega-3 feed in their food. Or you could also get the pasture-raised eggs, which means that they're feeding more on grasses and bugs and different things that are more like the hen's natural diet, which is then gonna get put into the eggs so you get that extra nutrition boost. And so we have 10 eggs that I've whisked together, and now we're gonna add our other ingredients. We're gonna start by adding 1 teaspoon of dried oregano. I've also made this recipe using Italian seasoning, and that was pretty delicious. So whatever kind of herb that you have on hand that you like, dried basil might be good also. And now I'm gonna add in 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Those are gonna be our flavors. And then we're gonna use 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. And so same thing, I've used the Dijon mustard with the seeds, the whole grain mustard, and that turns out really delicious for this. Or you can also just use the regular Dijon mustard. And that's gonna add a nice savory, rich flavor to our dish. And I like to just whisk as I go. And now we're gonna add in our vegetables. We have 1 red pepper diced. You could use a yellow pepper, you could use a green bell pepper, whatever color you like. This probably would be good using cauliflower or broccoli or mushrooms, any other vegetable that you have on hand that you like. I just like the bell pepper because it's really pretty. Look at that rich color that it adds to our dish. And then 1 cup of chopped spinach. This is fresh spinach that I'm using today, but you could use kale. Again, you could use broccoli, any kind of green that you have. We just added 2 cups of vegetables into our dish. That is definitely a win. And so I'm just gonna whisk it all together. And it actually smells really good from those herbs and spices we added in. And lastly, we're going to add some cheese. This is extra sharp cheddar cheese. The extra sharp means it's gonna be extra flavor. And so we have 1/2 cup of shredded cheese. And I like to add all of it in to the dish because I like the cheese melting throughout the mixture, but you could also just put 1/2 and then sprinkle some extra on the top. If you didn't have cheddar cheese, you could just leave out the cheese. I'm sure it would be good with feta cheese or Parmesan cheese, whatever kind of cheese you have on hand. So our mixture is all mixed together. And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get our pre-baked crust that we made, and we're gonna put our mixture into those before it bakes for the second time. So now it's time to put everything together. Our egg mixture with our delicious veggies is ready and our crusts are ready. So I like to take my 1/2 cup measuring cup and use that to help divide this more evenly. It's about 1/4 cup per muffin. And so we're just gonna put the mixture in. And don't worry if you are a little sloppy, we can clean that up before we put it in the oven. We're gonna get every little bit out of here. And then with whatever is remaining, you can fill up your muffins so that we use up all of that delicious mixture. We just don't want to go over the top. We want it to all stay within the muffin tin, because they will swell up when they cook, but they don't really overflow, which is okay. That looks good. And now I'm just gonna clean up any little spills that I made so that it doesn't burn when we go into the oven. And now it's ready. It's gonna go into the oven at 350 degrees for about 18 to 22 minutes. We want the eggs to be completely set before we pull them out. So our egg muffins have finished baking, and I allowed them to cool for quite a while. And so now all we have to do is run a spatula around the edge, and they should pop out pretty easily since we sprayed our muffin tin ahead of time. And so if you have one muffin with maybe some fresh fruit, it's a balanced meal. We have our fruit, we have vegetables, our protein from the egg, a little bit of dairy with the cheese. We are all set. I think I'll show you what it looks like in the middle. I'm just gonna try cutting one in half here. And you can see the layer. We have a layer of our walnut oat crust at the bottom, and then we have our egg mixture at the top. And so these are gonna make a great snack or meal to have any time of the day. You can put them in the refrigerator, just put them in a covered container for a couple days, and you could pop them in the microwave or the toaster oven to warm them back up, or just eat them cold if you like. I think I'll take a taste. Really good. I like the freshness from the bell pepper and the spinach with a little bit of crunch from the crust. Delicious. I'm so glad you could join me today for this episode of Cooking with Kayla. And remember, be gentle with yourself. See you next time.